Okay, so the goal for today is to take your completed assembly with all the pieces in the correct location, queen to her color, and everything lined up, and take that assembly and animate it into a complete chess match. You can use any complete chess match, but the shortest one is about 3 moves per team, and should end up looking something like that. So what you need to do is go to your finished completed assembly and make sure that everything is fully constrained. You can go to View and view degrees of freedom, and nothing should change. If you forgot to constrain something, like let's say I forgot to constrain this pawn from moving laterally, there would be a green arrow on it. So I would then need to, I can just undo, but I'll go ahead and constrain it to the plane that it's supposed to be constrained to by, let's see here, is it mate? Sure, it's mate, and I'm guessing the offset is -1. There we go. And now, even with degrees of freedom on, there are no green arrows, and I'll go back and turn off the visibility of those two planes. Okay, with your completed assembly, all the pieces in the correct location, everything constrained, you're going to go to Environments and Inventor Studio and open up an animation timeline. It will let you know that there are no animation commands. We know that, we're just starting, and hit OK. And your timeline will show up down here at the bottom. So the way we are going to make the pieces move is by animating constraints. Okay, and so you need to decide which piece you're going to want to move, and for a traditional chess match, the white team will move first, and I'm going to do the shortest, one version of the shortest chess match, a fool's mate or something like that. I'm not sure the actual name, but it starts with the white pawn moving forward 2 spaces. So I need to find that piece, which is pawn to :7, this one down here, and I'm going to find the constraint that's keeping it from moving that direction, which is called mate 59, and at its current location it's 13 inches away from the plane that I constrained it to, which is that one, the one over here. And if I wanted to move 2 spaces forward, each space being 2 inches, that means I needed to move forward 4 inches. So I'm going to find that constraint, the one keeping it from going the direction that I want to go. I'm going to right click and I'm going to animate constraint. Its current location is 13 inches away. I want it to be 9 inches away, okay, from that edge, and I want it to occur over 1 second. I'll hit OK, and you can see that over here, if we look at the action editor, and we take our playhead back to 0 seconds, if we hit play, over the course of 0 seconds to 1 second, that piece moves out 2 spaces. Okay, so it is black's turn now, and a common reaction move to that would be to have the, let's put it where we finished our last one, would be to have the pawn directly across from it, this pawn, move forward 2 spaces also. So I'm going to find, I can go ahead and close this drop down from our first one. I'm going to find the pawn I want to move, which is going to be pawn :3. I'm going to find the constraint that's keeping it from moving the direction I want to move, which is this one. and I'm currently 3 inches away from the edge of the plane surface, and I want it to move 2 spaces forward, which is 4 inches. So I'm going to animate constraint. It is currently at a 3-inch offset. I want it to go to a 7-inch offset, and don't worry about the amount of time, just hit OK. And now you can see this is the first movement that we just did, or that we did first, and this is the one we just did. And if you hit play, they are happening simultaneously, which is not the way chess works. So what I need to do is this second one, mate 18, is the black piece moving forward. I need to have it occur after the white piece finishes moving. And so now I moved it toward so that it's after. It doesn't start until second 1.1 and ends at there, and we can speed that up. So there goes that one and that one. And let's say we want this to look realistic or have some life to it. Maybe the black team is, or the black player is moving the piece faster, and as a reaction you can have it happen over a shorter period of time, and it comes out faster and more aggressive, whatever. Okay, so then the next move I'm going to have for the white team is to have this bishop move out to this space right here. Okay, so the bishop is going to go up and to the left 1 space, 2 space, 3 spaces. And so in order to do that, I need to animate 2 different constraints. The first thing I'm going to do is find that piece, which is bishop 2 colon 1. And I actually I want the piece to go up in the air the way you would move it with your hand. So I'm going to have it go up in the air. Let's have it go up in the air 1 inch for now. We can change it later. And the constraint that's keeping it on the ground is this one, the first one we did for the bishop, mate 64 in this case. And we will right-click Animate Constraint. And right now the offset of that bishop from the plane surface is 0 inches. And let's have it go to how about 1.5 inches off the ground. And the place that I want it to end up is 3 spaces at a diagonal. So that's the same as 3 spaces sideways and 3 spaces forward. So let's clean up our action editor down here, because we are just working with bishop 2 colon 1. And if I wanted to go at a diagonal 3 spaces, I can edit or animate this constraint. Right now it's 11 inches away from the side. I want it to go 3 spaces or 6 inches closer to the plane. So that's going to make it down to -5. Hit OK. Again, don't worry about the time, we'll fix that later. And here is the bishop floating in space there. And but because I want it to go at a diagonal, I need to animate the other constraint, and it is 15 inches away from the far side, so I'm going to right-click Animate Constraint. And again, 3 spaces is 6 inches, so I'm going to change +15 to +9, and it should end up there. And now, if we played it from the beginning, that bishop starts moving right away. So we need to find the end where the black pawn stops moving, and we could dig through the actions down here, or we could just find the playhead, or drag the playhead to where the black pawn stops moving, which is about there. And that's where I want these bishop constraints to start. So I can grab the middle of the action and drag them so they start there. Now let's try it. And this whole time you're going to be moving things around and then trying it. Okay, so clearly it's taking too long. This action is starting at second 1.5 and ending at second 4 something. So let's speed it up. And also, when it gets there, it is still up in the air. And that's not how things work. So what we're going to do is this, let's see, which one is it? This one, Mate 64, is the one that has it go off of the ground. So I'm going to mirror this because this constraint, or excuse me, this action is going from an offset of 0, flat to the ground, to an offset of 1.5 inches in the air. And now I have an action of the same constraint going from 1.5 inches in the air to the ground. And I can adjust these so that this is the piece going up in the air, and this is the piece coming back down. And here I have the piece completely up in the air by the time it is a third of the way on the way to its location. So let's just see what this looks like now. And we'll put it back to where the previous piece stops moving. Okay, and it moves kind of fast to appreciate it, so let's slow it down a little bit by spreading it out. And let's hit play. Okay, so it's fully up in the air by the time it is moving forward a little bit. It comes to a stop directly above its place where we want it to end, which is directly above that space. It comes to a stop, and then it goes down back to the ground after it comes to a stop. And let's say I want this to look realistic, and maybe the white team or the player is wants to have the bishop sort of slam to the ground. That means it would happen, that distance from 1.5 in the air back down to 0 would happen over the course of a small amount of time, or the shortest that we can make it, which is like that. Okay, so next move, black team needs to do something. Let's have the bishop actually, let's have the knight do a move, and knights can move in an L shape of 2 in one direction and then 1 in another. So I want the knight to end up in this space right here. So I am going to find that piece in my browser bar over here, and that piece is called knight:1. And once again, I'm going to have it jump up in the air, so I'm going to find the constraint holding it to the ground, which is mate 29, and I'm going to animate constraint. Right now it's 0 degrees offset from the ground, or on the ground, and let's have it go 2 inches in the air, which is that tall, and then I want it to go 2 spaces forward, so I'm going to find the constraint holding it back, and I'm going to animate that constraint. And if I want it to go 2 spaces forward, that's another 4 inches, so -1 becomes -5. And I want it to go 1 space to the left, so I'll find that constraint, which is 3 inches from the side, and I can animate constraint, and I only want to move 1 space, so it's going to go from a 3-inch offset to a 5-inch offset. And so right now I have that knight moving the entire time. So let's go ahead and drag the, let me close chessboard, and let's close bishop, or collapse. And so that the knight doesn't need to start moving until the white bishop is slammed down. So this is where I want everything to start moving. So I'm going to drag everything over to here. But once again, well, let's speed this up. We know it doesn't, the entire move doesn't need to take 2.5 seconds. And so this would look like this, where the knight is rising the entire time, which is not the way things work. So the one keeping it to the ground is mate 29 right here, and you can see it says from 0 to 2. Let's go ahead and mirror that, and we want it to be fully in the air pretty quickly, and then come back down to the ground pretty quickly. And if we want to be fancy, we can have it hover over its space for a little bit. This gap right here would be a hover because it's not moving for 0.2 of a second. And let's see what that looks like. Sure, why not? And maybe even slam it down harder, which is happening over a 1/10 of a second instead of where it was 0.2 of a second. So that looks like that. And we've done a lot so far, so let's go ahead and save it. And always hit yes to all and hit OK. And so where are we now? We need to we need a white move, and the white move is going to have the queen move up and over 2 spaces. So let's find that piece in the browser bar. I believe it is called Queen 2:1. And once again, I'm going to have it jump. So I'll animate that constraint from 0. Let's have it go up 1.5 inches. Seems to be what the white team does. And hit OK. And I want it to go 2 spaces to the right, so let's find which constraint is holding it from the side, which is mate 79. So I'm going to animate that, and I want it to go 2 spaces, so I need to add 4, or in this case subtract, but whichever, make it 4 more inches. And I also want it to go forward 2 spaces, and that constraint keeping it that direction is this, so we can animate that constraint. Need to change this by 4, and once again we see this is the, let's go and collapse this and collapse that. We have the queen starting her move at the very beginning of the entire match, which is not what we want. So let's drag the playhead to where the black knight slams to the ground, and this is where we want the queen to start moving. So let's drag the movements all the way over, and we know it's going to end up shorter, so we could just drag this to there and make these the correct size or length of time. And so we still haven't done the mirror. Okay, that's kind of quick. I'll probably slow that down a little bit. And the movement, the movement that gets it off the ground is this one. You can see that's from 0 to 1.5. The other ones are from -7 to -11, and from 15 to 11. So those are clearly the movements across the spaces. This is the one moving up and down. We need to have it come back to the ground, which you don't have to do mirror. It's just the fastest way because we want a movement that is the opposite. We could go back to mate 78 and do animate constraint, and at this point, at 8 seconds in the timeline, it's at 1.5 inches in the air, or yeah, off the plane surface. We could have it go back down to 0 and hit OK, and we've created another movement, but that's not as fast as a mirror. So let's have, this is the piece going up, the queen going up in the air, and this is it coming back down. Maybe this movement is a little bit longer because the player is thinking about it, and maybe the player starts putting it down. Maybe everything about this move is a little bit slower, more pensive, and so the queen goes like that. And so let's save it again. And in order to, well, the next move will be from the black team, and let's say the player does not see what's about to happen and moves this pawn. Oh, sure, let's just have this pawn move forward 2 spaces to threaten the bishop. Let's find that pawn, which is going to be pawn colon 2, and I'm not going to have it jump in the air. You saw how to do that. I'm going to have it, right now it's 3 inches away from its end line. Let's have it go 2 spaces forward, which is another 4, which would be right click animate constraint. We need to add 4 to this, which makes it 7, and we don't want it to start moving right away. Let's just make this bar shorter so it's more manageable to move. And so let's see here, the queen moves, and that's when the pawn should start moving. Let's drag this back, see what happens. Knight, queen, pawn, and now it is time for the queen to do the final move. The queen is going to take this pawn right here, and this pawn is going to fly off the table, and then it will be checkmate, and the king will topple over. So let's start with the queen moving forward. So let's find queen 2 colon 1, and I'm not going to have it jump. I'm just going to have it go forward. So as long as our playhead is after everything that we have, things will work out well. And we can animate this constraint, which right now it's 11 inches from this end line, and we want it to end up in this space, which is 3 inches from the end line. So we'll change it from 11 to 3, so it's going to happen from 11 to 3, and it will, well, we'll get a bar that we can play around with. And so this is that bar. You can see here, this is the queen. This is the queen's previous move, where it goes up to the right, and then the pawn moves, and then the queen needs to move forward at that point, which we can have happen as quickly as we like. But when the queen gets there, the pawn is already there. So we need this pawn to end up where we are going to put the pieces that would be taken. So I need to animate this pawn, which is pawn 8, and I'm going to have it fly over. So first I'm going to get it off the ground. Let's have it get off the ground 3 inches, because why not? And let's go ahead and just make this a manageable size at this point. This is the pawn going up in the air, and we'll time it with the queen better here in a second. And I want it to end up over here somewhere, maybe where the white team would collect its taken players, which would be over here. And so I need to find another one of its constraints. It is 3 inches from the end line, its end line, and we will animate that constraint. And I want it to be sort of over in this space, so that is going to be, that's 13 inches away. You just know from previous. It's going to go from 3 to 13, which will put it over there, and we'll make this a more manageable size. And I want it to end up actually outside of the board. So I'm going to find its other constraint, which right now it's 11 inches away from that end, and I'm going to animate it. And if this is 11, this is 13, this is 15, I want it to go farther than that. How about from -11 to -20? And that would put it over there. And so this set of 3 movements makes the pawn go over there. But let's have it come back down to the ground, like the white team is placing it into that area. So it also would probably go a little bit slower. That seemed kind of fast. Let's hit play. Yeah, that is kind of fast. Let's slow this down a little bit. It's going pretty far. And we want to come back down to the ground, so we need a mirror, or we just need another movement. Mirror is the best way to do that. And let's make it come back down, and let's see what happens, how that looks. Ignoring the queen for now, just the pawn coming off of the board. Okay, that's good. And it's moving pretty quickly. I kind of want it to not move until the queen is about there. So I'm going to move all of these constraint animations back to there. So now the pawn won't move until it goes to about there. But we don't want anything crossing through solid objects. Let's double check and make sure that it doesn't cross through something. And it goes back down. Okay, save reminder, never a bad idea. And so the last action of this animation is to have the king fall over. Now, this is a bit tricky. We are going to go back to the beginning of the timeline and save it and finish Inventor Studio to go back out into the regular assembly. Let's clean everything up, collapse all children, and we need to find this king, which is king 1, king colon 1, and delete all of its constraints, because in order for it to tip over, well, actually we'll save this one. The way that I want it to tip over is going to be to tip over forward, and if I kept this mate, the mate to the ground, it would break that constraint by tipping it over. So we need to get rid of that. We also need to get rid of flush 5, because if we want it to tip over, it would break that. I am, however, going to keep this one because it's going to be that plane, that YZ plane of the king is still going to be parallel with the side of the XY plane of the board or of the assembly. So it's fine. So how do we get something to tip over? Well, the way we get it to tip over is with a angle constraint, which we are going to go to constrain. We'll go to angle constraint, we can choose the first type, and we are going to do an angle constraint between the plane surface and the bottom of the piece, and we will set it to 180. Actually, you know what? Here's what we're going to do. Ignore that. We are going to turn on the visibility of the origin plane for the assembly, the one that is the end-lined, the one behind it, which in this case is YZ. And I'm going to do an angle constraint to, or between, that plane and the base of the king, and I want it to be the way I want it at the start, which in this case is going to be 90 degrees. And now's a good time to figure out how we want it to end up, where if 0 is this way, that means 180 is this way, which if we start it at an angle of 90 degrees, our animation is going to be from 90 to 180 degrees, and we'll hit OK. And let us turn off this visibility. Okay, and we want it to tip over, but we don't want it to be up in the air. And the way we've kept things to the chessboard in the past has been by mating a face, the bottom face of the piece, to the chessboard. The problem is that won't let it rotate, but we can constrain it to the board by constraining the king, finding his origin plane, and constraining the center point, where if you made it correctly, the center point should be on the base there. And we are going to mate the center point, which is under the king's origin folder, right where the planes and axes are. The center point, we're going to mate that to the surface. Hit OK, and put it in place. And let's see what happens here. Environments, Inventor Studio, timeline, and let's move everything to the end, or where we want the king to tip over. And we want the king to tip over starting about there. And so let's find that king, and we're going to find that angle constraint, which is angle 1, and we are going to animate that constraint. Remember, we started at 90, or it's currently 90, and we want it to tip over, which is adding 90 degrees, so we'll make it go from 90 to 180. And we will make it a reasonable amount of time. And so we have the queen coming to take the other pawn, and let's have the king start tipping over a little bit later and a little bit slower. And you can see we have a couple of issues. While the king does tip over, it slides back. It also goes into the board. So let's jump back, finish Inventor Studio, save it. And in order to keep it from sliding back, we're going to mate the center point of the king, constrain the center point, which we selected. Let's click off. Constrain, mate center point of the king to the assembly's origin plane, the same one that we did before, the one behind it, but we want it in the correct starting place, which is an offset of 1, and hit OK. Now when we go to Inventor Studio and we get the timeline and drag it over, the center point, or the king, will not move any closer to the end of the board. It will stay there. Okay, so we've solved that. Now we have the problem of the king falling into the board, which is obviously wrong. And that is because the center point of the king, which is right there, is mated to the plane surface. So how would it look if it was tipping over? What would happen to that center point? Well, once it's tipped over, that center point would be up in the air. So let's find that constraint of king 1, the mate of the center point to the ground, which is mate 88, I think, yeah. And let's animate that constraint. And it's constrained to the board, which is 0. And if the chess piece has a base of 1.5 inches, a diameter, the radius is going to be 0.75, and that's how far it will be off of the ground when it's done. And let's find that king, and we want it to occur over the same time span of it tipping over, maybe. We'll play with it in a second. This is the angle constraint of rotating it. And let's see what happens. Well, let's just play it and see what it looks like. It looks pretty good. The one problem is it does still sort of slice through the thing there, and that is because our constraint of the center point coming up off the ground should be a little bit higher there in order to keep any part of the king from cutting into the board. So let's have that already done by then, and let's see what that looks like. That looks okay, but another problem is if a piece were to tip over, and let's turn the visibility of the queen off for right now. If a piece were to tip over, that center point would also become slightly farther from the end line. So let's find the constraint of the end line, which is this mate 89, and let's animate that constraint. It's already 1. If this were tipped over, let's say it goes forward. It's not going to be quite the same as how far it goes up off the board. Let's see what 1/2 inch looks like. So that would be to 1.5. And we'll have it occur over probably the same amount of time as the center point coming up, which is going to be like that. And let's see what happens there. And that looks okay. We can probably fix it a little bit. So the center point is, let's see, what is happening too fast? The center point leaning forward is happening too quickly. So let's move it back. And that looks pretty good. In fact, maybe this needs to happen a little slower, or this needs to happen faster. This is getting into the minutia of making this look really good, and that's probably good enough. And if you want it to, you want to have a little more fun, you can, let's do a mirror of the angle constraint, but over a short period of time, and that, but only make it instead. Oh, that's not what I want to do. Undo. And where are we? King. Let's delete this. Okay, so we have it there on the ground. It's made its way to the ground. Let's let's mirror this, but let's edit it to, okay, at this point right here, it's going from 90 degrees to 180, and we don't want it to go all the way back up. Let's just have it go back up that much. So instead of from 180 back to 90, let's have it go back to 170. And that would have it bounce that amount. But that happens very slowly, plus it needs to happen, it needs to go back down to the ground. So you would need to mirror that. And let's see what this looks like. Okay, so there is one final thing that makes this look, that will make this look even more realistic. That is the way the thing falls. You can see it sort of the falling slows down as it goes. It sort of comes to a slow stop, and that's not how things fall. The way things fall is a constant acceleration. So we'll go to the first one. These are this, and this are the angle constraints, or the angle animations. We're going to edit the first one, right-click Edit, and we're going to go to Acceleration. We're going to specify velocity, and we want it to spend the entire length of time, the entire length of its movement, accelerating, which is the way things fall. So it will be a subtle difference, but you'll see as it tips over, and then we got to do the same thing for here. Let's edit this, accelerate, specific velocity, or specify velocity 100% of the time accelerating, and let's edit this and accelerate, specify velocity 100% of the time. And since these are the related things, they theoretically should be 100% acceleration instead of the standard is accelerate, constant, and then decelerate, which is what this is. 20% of the time accelerate, 60% of the time standard, and 20% decelerating. We are making this all accelerating, and let's see what this looks like. And it looks like it's going kind of slow as far as how fast things move in real life. Let's speed everything up a little bit. And I'm not going to worry about the mirrors of these. It's subtle enough that it's not going to make a difference. Let's see. And there you go. And so save it. And now we can record it.